Welcome. It's Dave Corum. Welcome to the Truth is Simple. I'm your host, and today is September 19th, 2023. Last week, I kind of brought up a term, propaganda. I wanted to kind of not really dig into that, but talk about something that's a prime example of what happens when propaganda or whether it's truthful information or bad information is provided and given to you, what the result can be. And that word is conformity. So conformity, I looked it up in Wikipedia. It says conformity is the act of matching attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors to groups, norms, politics, or being like-minded. Norms are implicit, specific rules shared by a group of individuals that guide their interactions with others. I also, when I looked up that, actually asked for the definition. This is what I found for that, or one of the definitions. There's multiple definitions, but this is one of the ones that kind of intrigued me the most. It's a type of social influence involving a change in belief or behavior in order to fit within a group. So I thought, wow, fit within a group, that kind of sounds a little bit like peer pressure. So if you watch a lot of the news today, if you look at your phone and you watch any videos, propaganda is everywhere. You may think it's just, what do we call it? Social media, but somebody, for the most part, has an agenda. I might have an agenda with this. And it's specifically just trying to get you to realize the truth. Whether you accept what I say or not, that's fine. I don't expect everybody to accept my word of mouth as the truth. So I'm telling you to look up and find stuff and investigate things for yourself. So when I thought about conformity, it reminded me of a story I heard many years ago. There was this guy that lived out in the middle of the country, and there was this very elusive animal that lived out in the country, kind of in his area. Nobody really saw it that much, but it was there. They just knew it was there. So this guy decided he was going to catch one. And what he did is he went out and he started a little food plot, like a little bucket with some food in it that he thought the animal might eat. And he sat off at a very far distance, and he just watch and see if the animal would show up. And sure enough, in the evening times, he saw this animal would kind of come out of the forest. And this was out in the open plains area, so kind of an open view where you could visually see it from a distance. And the animal would come out and sure enough would start eating the food. First time it came, it kind of took a sniff, smelled probably his scent on it, probably looked around a little bit, didn't really see anybody, and the animal just didn't really take anything yet. He just went back into the forest. The next day, he came back out. Some other critters had eaten some of the food out of there, so the guy refreshed it, put some new stuff in there, and put it back out. Same night, maybe about that same time, a little bit later, he saw that same animal come out and kind of look around, slowly walk out to the bucket again where the food was, and took a couple little bites, and something scared it and ran back into the woods. So the next day, he kind of did the same thing. So after about a month of doing this, he finally put it out there. He saw the deer. It wasn't a deer. It's this special animal. Could be a deer. It could be whatever you want it to be. Comes out of the forest and starts. This time it pretty much ate everything in the bucket because it was starting to feel safe and sound. So the guy that next day went out and he put a stake in the ground, a fence post. Just one. That's it. Just one fence post, and that was it. The animal came out the next day, and the next day, and the next day, the same. And the guy added a second fence post, and then came out, added another fence post, until the fence posts were probably about 10, 15 yards away from the food that was being left out. And then the next day he'd come out, and then he'd start putting boards up from fence post to fence post. And he kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And the animal would keep coming back every night, not knowing anything different otherwise. It was just conforming and getting a free meal every night, right? The next night, when he finally got everything all fenced off except for one little section of where the animal came in to get the food, the animal came in that night, and he came in behind it and closed the gate on the animal. The fence was high enough so it couldn't jump out. Wasn't a digging animal, so it really couldn't dig itself out. But as you can see from the story, it's talking about conformity. This animal felt safe and sound after time seeing and living the same thing. He didn't know any different, and finally this guy caught this animal, inside this fenced in area. He got one. So that's what life is kind of about. And that's what conformity is about. It's about us taking in stuff around us and molding and shaping who and what we become to whatever the accepted norms of the group or the country or the culture or the church or the business or the high school or the gym or where you go and work out. People there wear and dress and act a certain way. It's all about conformity. Do you fit in? If you don't fit in, what do you usually do? You kind of be quiet, be quiet. Maybe you stop going after a while. Maybe you try to find some new people to hang around with. Maybe you become a little distressed in how you live your life because you feel stressed because nobody sees life the way I see it or how it should be, and I don't agree with them. But if I want to fit in, I gotta do this, right? So that's what conformity is all about. Um, there's a lot of media organizations out there who I would say probably 30, 40 years ago, and it doesn't matter if you're on the left side or if you're on the right, but a lot of them are polarized, meaning they're on opposite sides of the spectrum of all the information that's in there. They're on opposite sides, and they're so opposite of each other that there is no real truth that really fits in the middle. You're either all the way over here or you're all the way over here, and there's nothing in the middle. What I'm suggesting back in the 60s, 70s, 80s when I was growing up, I think we were more open and there were more of us in the center. Now it's just polarized. And like I was saying, a lot of the news organizations, the media organizations, they're owned by fairly rich corporations and fairly rich people who, because of the cell phone and technology and so forth, are able to transmit information at an alarming rate. I mean, something that happens right now, I could have my phone and it could be up on YouTube in less than a minute, or any of these other social media locations for anybody and everybody to see, right? Things that are global, which used to take sometimes years, then months, and then weeks, and then days, and then hours, takes basically a second for the world to see. So what I'm saying about conformity, we had some morals and values in this country. Morals and values can change over time, but are those morals and values for the better or are they for the worse? I, in my own personal opinion, think we are being propagandized into conformity by those that want to control us. Me, you, everybody. I think we need to stop and take some time, you, me, all of us, and really get the scoop, really investigate. Is this the way things really are? Is this the things, how we really want to live our lives? Do we want to feel stressed? Do we want to feel pressured into believing or thinking a certain way? A lot of the things we've molded or shaped or moved ourselves into just over the last 12 years. 10 years before that would have been ludicrous. None of the things that we think today would have gone by. And it's because of over time, when you tell somebody something and something and something and something, and then you put a penalty on there at the very end of it. If you don't conform. If you don't conform, then this is what you're going to be. You're going to be a racist. You're going to be a homophobe. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. You're going to be, so people don't want that. They want to be able to feel like they're part of a community. They want to feel like they're part of this or that, of something important and big, and not feel like they're out of bounds per se, or different. Now, there's another story that could go with that. When we think of probably the animals of the world that are out there, those that are in flocks or groups, we necessarily think them of being the lesser of the strength animals. For example, gazelle, deer, fish, seagulls and pigeons and those types of things. We think, to me, maybe I'm different than all the rest of you, but to me, those are kind of like the feeders, the leftovers, the ones that kind of have to have the groups of them to survive. If there's 100,000 fish and I'm just one in 100,000 and we're hanging together, the chances of me getting eaten by that shark are going to be pretty low, right? If it's just me or 3 or 4 of us and that shark's coming, well, then I have a 33% chance if there's 3 of us to get eaten, or if 2 of us, 50% chance. Those aren't good odds, right? So sharks usually don't flock together. When you think of the birds, you have the pigeons, like I said, and seagulls and so forth, birds like that. What are the birds that don't flock together? They're the birds of prey, right? When you think of animals in the sea, killer whales, they might travel in a pod, a group of, one to 6 or 7 of them. I've rarely seen more than that, and I've been up in Alaska and other places. Rarely see less than 5 or 6 killer whales together, and they use each other's strength to become a team, a hunting team, so they can provide food for themselves. So when you think about things in life, it's the same in humanity to some aspect. You can be like everybody else, but to the detriment of us all. Or you can stand up and be something a little bit different. You could be that eagle. You could be that hawk. You could be that shark. Sharks aren't necessarily bad or negative. They're just trying to survive like everybody else, except they're the king predator of the sea. Whether you believe in God or not, God gave us, and as you can see from where we are as humanity, we're the supreme mammal being on this planet. And until something replaces that, we need to be able to learn from how Mother Nature has set it up, how God set it up, where the lead animal or mammal doesn't mean to degrade and destroy things or the planet by any means. I'm not talking about that. I think we do need to have be sane and take care of the planet, because this is our only home. It's small. When you look at the size of the universe, it's a very tiny little grain of sand in the big cosmos. So we need to take care of it, and we can't get off of it and go anywhere else right now. So we need to take care of it. This is our home. This whole planet is our home. So with that said, but at the same time, there are those that want to control us. It's always been human nature for the few to control the many. The few to have it all and the many to have nothing, right? I think you probably could agree with me on that. So how do we change that? We change that by becoming a group of knowing what's right, what's wrong. The law is black and white. Sorry to say, it's not in color. What works for one in the law works for all. That encompasses all. I come from a law enforcement background. I've never treated anybody any different because of the color of their skin, or where they were born, or how much money they have or don't have. I've never done that. So everybody is an equal, and it's the same today. As a common Joe citizen walking the streets, I walk by and I smile and I say hi just about to everybody that's willing to acknowledge me, which is, for a bad reason, very, very few people acknowledge that I even exist. They just are looking at their phone, or they're just walking by looking at something else. Rarely does anybody ever get eye contact with me. I mean, it's 1 in 10, if that. So that needs to change. We need to uplift and uphold each other, respect each other, but give due respect to those who deserve it, not those that are willing to take our freedoms in our life and try to get us to conform to something that we're not. And this country is the only beacon in the world, that shining light on top of the hill. That's us. And once this country is gone and that's taken away, it could be 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years before something as great, as God-given as this country reappears. And man will go back into tyranny and being suppressed by the few of their own kind. Not a good thing. So conformity is good, but it's also bad. You need to understand the difference between the good and the bad side of it. And we need to come together as a community, as a group, as a nation, and reinvest and reinstill the values that our founding fathers put in place. They're not perfect by any means. Yes, there were issues with them back then when they were written, but still 2,000 or 2,250 years later, just like the Bible, written anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 years ago, is still the best book about how to live your life. Whether you believe in Jesus Christ or God or not, the Bible is the book. It is the book of how a man should live his life. And with that said, next week, I'm not sure what we'll talk about, but that's it for this week, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week and stay out of trouble and start doing some research and wising up on how the world works. Have a great day.